I sewed Vogue 1831 recently, and I want to share a review with you in case you'd like to sew this also. This pattern was part of the fall 2021 release from Vogue Patterns. The jacket in this pattern was inspired by a Gucci design in the Gucci Fall 2020 collection. I'm Sharon. Welcome to my channel. This is a channel where we chat about sewing. This is a great jacket pattern to sew to add to your fall wardrobe. You can wear it dressed up if you want to, or with jeans. My plan is to wear mine with jeans. Pattern is available in sizes 8 through 24, which is bust 31.5 to 46 inches, and it's rated average. I would agree with that now that I have sewn it. If you haven't sewn a lot of jackets, I think this is a good one to sew, or maybe you just don't want to do a lot of traditional tailoring. This is a great option. Fabric suggestions are medium weight wools, faux leather, stretch denim, and twill, and it is fully lined. I know sometimes it seems like it's more work when it's lined, but it just makes such a nice finish inside, and it feels so good when you wear it. Details on this one: it features a back yoke, inverted pleat, bow detail, two-piece sleeves, button trim, Peter Pan collar, which you can make contrasting like I did, and patch pockets. You'll notice I don't have patch pockets on here. I'll share that in a moment. I sewed a size 14. That's a typical size for me when I sew jackets. And I did do a full bust adjustment. I did look at the finished garment measurements, which were printed on the pattern. And for size 14, there was about 11 inches ease in the bust area, which I wouldn't have needed to do a full bust adjustment. Sometimes I will choose to do a full bust adjustment, even though there's enough wearing ease, because I like to keep the design ease. I like to keep the look that the designer was going for. I did a 3-inch full bust adjustment. I used a pivot and slide method so that I would not have a dart in the side. The fabric I chose is a silk suiting from Fabric Mart Fabrics, and it has a little bit of an embroidered design detail on it with a little bit of embroidered and metallic thread. Now, the weight of this is really good and the drape of it is pretty good, but this metallic thread design made it difficult to cut out. I did cut it single layer because of that, and a couple of pieces were just too thick. Like this little loop, I originally did it completely out of the fabric, which goes right here. What I ended up doing is taking it apart and using a lining fabric on the back, which you can't see. I did the same thing on the tie. You can see that right here. The reason I did that, it was just too thick to turn right side out and hang properly. So keep that in mind when you do choose your fabric. I love this little bow detail in the back. It's my favorite part of the jacket. And you might notice it comes below the hemline. I double checked the pattern piece for the bow. I double checked the markings for how you fold this bow. Let me back up just a second. Let me tell you how this is constructed. Your first thing you're going to do is construct the pleat. And this is a separate panel back here. So you could, if you wanted to, do a little contrast peekaboo color there because it's seamed here, and then you're pressing it. And then you're going to add this little loop right here and stitch the yoke in place to here. This bow is the last thing that gets added to the jacket, and what you're doing is this loop is here and you're feeding this bow through the loop. And those pockets I mentioned earlier, let's turn this back around. On the original designer version and also on this pattern, the pockets, they're patch pockets and they're kind of right below the bust. I thought they were a really odd placement, and I put them on and pinned it and put the jacket on and went, no. If you are going to sew the pockets, let me mention this. They're interfaced completely, and you run a basting line along the curved edge, and then you gently ease that in, and that will help you when you turn this over to keep that curve. What I would suggest is adding lining to the back of this. I think that would look a little bit nicer. It's up to you. You might decide like I do that they just look kind of odd. I chose to do a contrast collar, just like the designer version, and as shown on the pattern envelope. I chose to do faux leather on the top, and this is a shirting fabric on the bottom. Just makes it easier when you're feeding it through your machine. As I mentioned, the jacket is fully lined. Before I added the lining, I did add a sleeve head inside. I was also going to add shoulder pads. I have narrow sloping shoulders, and usually a small shoulder pad works really well for me in a jacket. I put them on in this one and it didn't look right, so I eliminated it. I still have the sleeve head in there that just helps fill out the sleeve a little bit, and it still is fine without the shoulder pad. Lining. Let's talk about the lining. It's super easy to do, but don't do what I did. I didn't follow the instructions on this, and I put the lining together and I hand stitched the bottom of the lining to the hem of the jacket, and then I held it up and I looked at that pleat in the back and I said, that's not gonna work. I think it's supposed to hang free. Yes, indeed. The lining is supposed to hang free on the bottom, which if I would have thought it through, that makes sense because of the inverted pleat, because the inverted pleat is on the jacket and on the lining. That meant I needed to finish off the hem of the jacket so that it would look beautiful if the lining ever flipped up. I just added a little bias binding. That was my own bias that I cut from the lining fabric and stitched it in place, and you can see it looks really nice. Oh, and here's a little tip. This is something I do on my jackets. On the bottom edge of the facing, maybe about 3 inches, I finish it off with the bias binding. That way, when I add the lining, I don't have that little tiny little awkward spot that is a little raw edge that I never know what to do with. Bonus! I also sewed the pants. I sewed them out of a stretch denim, and I'll give you my thoughts on that. Don't do it. Oh, you want me to expand that a little bit? Okay. I'm so disappointed because the fabric was amazing. It's from Stylemaker Fabrics. It's a stretch denim, not too heavy, medium weight, dark wash, beautiful. And remember, stretch denim was one of the recommended fabrics. So I figured it would work beautifully for this pant. I had some issues. I cut my normal size and I added 1 inch to the side seams. This is just fit insurance, something I learned from Sandra Bettina years ago. And then I added 1 inch to the length, and I took 2 inches of width out of the flare. Stitched it up, put it on, and oh my goodness, it was huge, huge. I got a little picture right here. It was just too wide. I know these are high-waisted pants, but that rise was really long. The challenge was I had already sewn that fly front, so I was kind of stuck. I wasn't going to remove that. I took all the other seams apart and the darts in the back. I recut it a smaller size. Well, first of all, I got rid of that 1 inch fit insurance that obviously wasn't needed on this pattern. I cut it down a size and I stitched it up again. I think because of the 30% stretch denim, I needed to go smaller. Even after doing that, it was too big and too short. So I ended up taking another 4 inches out of the width of the flare. I removed the hem. Remember, I had lengthened it 1 inch. I put in a 1 inch hem. I took that out and I added purchase bias tape to the very bottom and then folded that up. I was just trying to get as much length as possible to those pants. And the back, I unstitched the waistband at the back. I took in that back seam, what is that, 2.5, 3 inches, and then recut the waistband and stitched it back together. By the way, instead of doing denim on denim for the facing of the waistband, I used a cotton fabric, and the facing on pockets, I also used a cotton fabric just to eliminate some of the bulk. This is just my own experience. You need to do what's best for you. They're wearable. I won't sew this one again. Vogue 1831 jacket, yay. Pants, maybe. Do you have any questions on the construction of the jacket? Leave them in the comments for me below. Would love to know if you think that you might sew this one. Be sure to like the video and share it if you think others would also find it useful. I'll see you in the next video. I hope you have a blessed day and happy sewing. Find it useful, also.